Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie. I'm a book loving, notebook hoarding literacy teacher educator on a mission to change lives one book and one notebook at a time. And this is the Get Literate podcast, a podcast where we explore the power of reading and writing to cultivate a life we love. Each week, I offer a bit of bibliotherapy and share 3 books you need to know about on a bookish theme to fuel our reading hearts and help us grow through what we go through. But that's not all. I also invite you to extend those bookish themes into your own life through notebooking, lifelong learning, and creativity to experience the life-changing magic of reading in our lives. And the best part? Each episode is only 20 minutes or less, so you can spend less time listening and more time reading. Now, on to today's episode.
Hey everyone, welcome to the 3rd episode of the Get Literate podcast. Today we are talking about all things middle grade novels, especially 3 Huggable middle grade novels. Now, as a literacy teacher educator, it's literally part of my job to read children's literature. I read picture books, I read middle grade novels, I read young adult novels, and I strive to balance my reading life to be 50% children's literature and 50% adult literature. Now, I remember one particular softball tournament with my daughter. We had some downtime in between games, and I was reading a book, and one of the moms came over to me and asked, "Do you ever read adult books? Or are you always reading kids' books?" And the simple fact is, I read those kids' books for work, but I also truly, strongly believe that every adult should make space for children's literature in their own reading life. In fact, I've written a whole blog post on this very topic at alitlife.com, and I will share the specific blog post in the comments. But I think it's really important for adults to make space for kid lit in their reading life. Not only does it give us a new perspective of the world, but it helps us get a new perspective on ourselves. It helps us think differently about how we interact with the kids around us, how we parent our own children, and what the world must seem like from a shorter, smaller point of view. In fact, if I had to think of just one book, one children's literature selection that just literally transformed the way I think about kid literature and the way I think about parenting in general, it'd be Anne Braden's The Benefits of Being an Octopus. In that book, we meet a character who is going through a lot. She has a mom who is struggling to make ends meet. Mom's boyfriend is struggling to be a good man for the family, and she's trying to hold everything in to help her little brothers and sisters, to keep up with her schoolwork, and to just feel good. And there's one particular point in the book that had me in tears. Here's why. She was eavesdropping on a conversation between her mother and her mother's boyfriend. Now, this wasn't a terrible, abusive kind of domestic fight. This was a closed door, low voice conversation that changed her and changed me. The stepfather was saying some pretty unkind things to the mother. And rather than having the mom fight back and rally back and tell him it's not true, don't talk to me like that, as the young character thought her mother would, she simply put her head down and said, "I know." And that was a turning point in the book for this character. And it was a turning point for me too, because in that moment, I realized what things must look like from a child's perspective. In childhood, lots of things, according to Russell Brunson, are caught, not taught. And reading these books from a perspective of a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, a teenager, they give me new insight into the world, into my own actions, and how things might seem to other people. That's a big deal. That's what middle grade novels can give us, that, and of course, so much more. So I'm here to share 3 huggable middle grade novels I think you need to add to your summer TBR stack, whether you share them with the middle grader in your life or you simply add them to your own stack for your own reading enjoyment. First up is a brand new book that absolutely has my heart. It's The Road to After by Rebecca Lowell. This book. This was an absolutely beautiful book written in verse that just had me entranced from the first page to the last. In it, Lowell introduces us to Lacey and her family. Now, Lacey and her family have literally been kept hostage in their own home by an abusive father for many, many years. And at the start of the novel, it opens up with Lacey's mother finally finding the courage to leave because of some pretty frightening events and the support of her family. The rest of the book follows Lacey and her family as they are suddenly thrust into this new, unrecognizable, and even though it may be safer, it feels like a scarier life. Lacey tries to figure it all out moving forward, but her father's words and actions are just haunting her mind and her ability to move forward in a different life. Thankfully, she finds an invitation through art and nature to start thinking about her life and herself and what's possible a little bit differently. Lowell so beautifully captures this both frightening and heartbreaking and beautiful time with this sense of hope and unquestionable love. And as I said in my review online, it is heartbreakingly beautiful. And even more so because I found out after reading the book that this book is actually based on Rebecca's story. Rebecca, as a mom who was kept sheltered in her own home for a long time by an abusive husband. And this is her road to after. This was the story of her way out. So while not completely a memoir, she is writing about it from the perspective of her daughter or a child that might be in a family like this, and truly shows that there's hope. No matter what your situation is, there's hope in friendship, there's hope in family, there's hope in nature, there's hope in writing, there's hope in art. There is hope if you're open to looking for it and actually moving through those hard things to find that road to after. If you only put one of these Huggable novels on your TBR stack this summer, please let it be this one. It's incredibly impactful. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll root for the characters, you'll wonder what happens, but you'll also gain a deeper appreciation for your own life, what things are going on in your own life that maybe you want to change, that maybe you want to find a road to after, or things that are going well that you now better appreciate, knowing what someone else's story and struggles might have been. And you get all of that wrapped up in a middle grade novel. So that's The Road to After by Rebecca Lowell. The second book I want to share with you, it's also huggable, but in a different way. So this book checked all the boxes for me, right? In a middle grade novel, we're looking for things like relatable characters, real life events that students and adults can connect to, beautiful themes like family and friendship and growing up and moving forward. This book just had them all. Literally check, 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 check. And I loved it because it acted as a window for me, right? Books can be mirrors, books can be windows, books can be sliding glass doors is what we explore in my children's literature classes. And this gave me a window into another family's way of living, into another family's way of living that I could never experience for myself. So the author introduces us to Ari and her family and this crazy swirl of events that they are enveloped in. They've got the difficulties and the challenges of being one religion while surrounded by another where you live. They have the challenges of running a family-owned business. They have the heartbreaking challenge of a family divided and the frustration of the school system and how it may or may not support students who look differently and who learn differently. It's also got your typical middle grade novel themes of friendship and fitting in and more. Honestly, I got pretty entangled with these characters pretty quickly, and I did not want to let the book go. That's literally why I hugged it. I didn't want to. What I loved was that it gave readers the permission to know that family means a lot of things. And families are not perfect, and families can break, and families can crack, but families can heal. Families can heal. People can heal. But the only way we do that is if you start to trust and find and lean in to your own voice and actually use it. And that's what this book, How to Find What You're Not Looking For, gives us. It gives us all of those things where any reader, middle grade, adult, we can find ourselves in the pages of this book, whether it's connecting with the children, whether it's connecting with the parents, whether it's connecting with the themes of running a business or having a belief in something that those around you do not believe in, having family difficulties, having something happen to you that makes you want to run away, and what happens after that. All of those things are in this book without giving away exactly what happens. This author takes us on such a journey through 12-year-old Ariel's life that you cannot help become so entangled and connected with these characters and maybe find what you're not looking for in the end. A fantastic book for sure. Lastly, I have a book that in my review, I said just might be the perfect middle grade novel. And that is The Other Half of Happy by Rebecca Bell-Kersell. Oh, this book had everything you could ever want in a middle grade book too. Relatable characters, relatable situations, experiences that ring true, and writing that just invites you in. But it had so much more. The author introduces us to Kihana. She's a 12-year-old girl who just doesn't know where she fits in at school, where she fits in at home, where she fits in her own skin. She's struggling to make friends at her school. She's struggling to connect with her father's side of the family, her Guatemalan family. She's struggling to make sense of these new feelings she has for a boy. And she's also dealing with some worry about her brother and her grandmother and what's going to happen to them. But most of all, she's struggling to express what she feels on the inside to those that matter most. And in the process of trying to figure all of it out, she makes some regretful choices that she wishes she could take back and undo. But of course, as with any grade middle novel and with life, it's that process that teaches her something. It's that process that makes her understand what she's looking for. It's that process that perhaps helps her find the other half of happy. She feels like she's stuck in a world of halves. On one side, she has this family. On the other side, she has that family. On one side, she feels this way about herself. On the other side, she feels a different way. The other half of happy, I think, is something that we can all relate to in our own way, because we're all just still, no matter what age we are, just trying to figure out who we are and who we want to be and what happy actually means and how we fit in. The book comes full circle in such a beautiful way, which is why, of course, I hugged it and didn't want to let it go. But I truly believe that any reader will find him or herself in the pages of this book. We may not be 12, but we can understand what the character is going through. And it also helps us understand what kids today might be going through that perhaps we didn't experience, but now we can understand a bit more. And when we understand, we can better connect. We can have more empathy. We can feel things differently from a different point of view that helps us develop better relationships with ourselves and those around us. And again, this was all in a middle grade novel. So those are the 3 middle grade novels that I think first you'll hug, and then you will definitely add to your list in your notebook of books I've hugged, and think about how it helps you see the world a little bit differently, whether it's The Road to After, How to Find What You're Not Looking For, or the other half of Happy. These books will do all of those things. And here's what I recommend when you're done. After you're done reading the book, after you're really done thinking about the perspective of a middle grader and what these middle grade books can teach us, I want you to experiment a bit. I want you to write a letter to your younger middle grade self. What would you say? What would you tell them about their future? What would you tell them about the lessons that you've learned, what they should stop worrying about, what they should focus on? How did these middle grade books help you think differently about that period in your life? And go ahead and explore that by writing a letter to your younger middle grade self. And then also think about, how do these books help you think differently about the children, about the middle graders around you in your life? Are they learning things from you that you might not know or understand, but you do now because you see how they're so observant in the pages of this book? Do you see how they're looking at themselves and their home life and their school life? Do you see how they feel like they may not fit in, they may not have a voice, and the role that the adults in their life might play in it? That's the hard part. Write a letter to your younger self, and then perhaps think about right now what your current actions, your current thoughts, your current words might look, sound, and feel like to a middle grader in your life or just simply in the world, and see if that changes things. Does that open you up to something new, to your road to after, to your other happy, to something that you weren't looking for, but maybe you found? And lastly, you can't help but go hug someone you care about after reading a book that you've hugged too. So bask in those lovely, huggable middle grade feelings and see if you can pay it forward. That's it for us today. 3 middle grade books that you're going to want to hug. I highly recommend you bring them into your summer reading stack and the spirit of them into your actual life too. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Get Literate podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes and at www.alitlife.com. You'll also find additional inspiration for your reading and writing life there, like book lists, notebooking ideas, personalized book recommendations, and an invitation to join my Get Literate members community. Each month, we take a deep dive into one bookish theme and work to bring it to life in our own lives. You'll get a monthly bibliotherapy book calendar with a book recommendation for every day of the month, bonus episodes, live book club sessions, and much more. Learn more at www.getliterate.co.